Recently, we were given the opportunity to check out an updated build of Cyberpunk at E3 2019, now with more Keanu Reeves, though we did see 2 demos last summer. The game looked better than ever, and in this video, I want to tell you why Cyberpunk is the game of the decade. Sit back, jack in, and let me explain why you probably won't see another game like this for a long time, based on everything we've seen so far. Cyberpunk 2077 gives nearly unlimited freedom in the way you handle quests and characters, which really reminds me of the Fallout games during their heyday. However, Cyberpunk 2077 takes this concept of player choice and brings it home on an unprecedented scale. It isn't simply that you can follow a quest line, changing your mind about who to help and how to handle it just about as many times as you could in real life. It's also about the variety of ways you can approach each quest that will be highly determined by your character build. I've always felt in Fallout that you could make an intellectual or charismatic character that didn't focus on violence, but that you were always at a disadvantage in doing so. This is because the game has a moderate amount of combat and getting into a fight was simply inevitable. This created periodic hardships for this type of character build. However, in Cyberpunk 2077, this doesn't seem to be the case. Much of this issue is rectified by the gunplay of Cyberpunk, but also because of things like hacking. Hacking allows the player to take control of enemies or objects and turn them against other enemies. This allows them a way to fight without being experts in combat themselves, and makes this style of play more accommodating. One particularly interesting thing to note as well is that it's entirely possible to beat Cyberpunk 2077 without killing a single person, or so CD Projekt Red says anyway. Another really amazing aspect to Cyberpunk 2077 is the amount of polish the game already has. Now, this may be downgraded at release, and many people suspect that it will, but if it isn't, forget about it. The closest thing I've seen to this type of polish in a game is the recent God of War or maybe Last of Us, and both those games won Game of the Year. If CD Projekt Red can keep this level of refinement and detail they've shown in their 2 uniquely different demos, then I can't see this game getting less than a 10 from most major outlets. In fact, it's the only game I can think of that is likely to receive a perfect score from more outlets than it isn't. Cue Kotaku and Polygon complaints here. The graphics of the game are excellent, and though not the best I've seen in a game, the level of detail is outstanding. Things run smoothly, characters look and feel realistic, nothing ever jumps out at you to pull you from the immersion. Take The Outer Worlds, which is probably the most similar game releasing within 6 months of Cyberpunk, and it's totally the opposite. While the gameplay looks very good, the poor character animations and odd graphical design choice leave much to be desired. This detracts heavily from that sense of immersion, and that is a game being developed by Obsidian, which has a relatively stellar track record within the gaming community. I'd wager that Cyberpunk will be 2 to 3 times better than The Outer Worlds at launch, which is staggering. As mentioned earlier, players will have an unparalleled amount of freedom when it comes to playing Cyberpunk 2077, and they can be the hero or villain. And that can change at the drop of a hat as players acquire new information that may sway their decisions or make them have a change of heart. The main protagonist, V, is very much a neutral character by design, only doing what is necessary to survive. This allows for you to take control and really determine if what he or she is doing is enjoyable or loathed, and decide if you wish to change that or not. This isn't something that is new in gaming, but is certainly a must-have for any game to be considered mind-blowing. In addition, players can customize their appearance separately from their equipment, so you can look as badass as you want without having to worry about which gear to wear. Gear works very similarly to other RPGs with slots for each type of equipment, allowing players to change gear on the fly with many different types of weapons but little in the way of armor. This is one area that is still very much a mystery, as not much has been shown in this regard. However, assuming they don't do anything too drastic, it will likely be good enough. Hollywood and the gaming industry have been on a collision course for some time now, but no one has managed to implement a celebrity in the manner that Cyberpunk 2077 does. Destiny featured Peter Dinklage as the ghost that helps the Guardian, providing modestly witty dialogue, and Cyberpunk 2077 takes it to a whole new level. Not only is Keanu Reeves the ghost of Cyberpunk 2077, but you see him constantly in all his excellence when he speaks. While this is certainly not a reason to purchase the game, and I would never recommend the game simply because of this one aspect, this sort of thing creates even more hype and interest. And if I must say, it works exceptionally well within the gameplay of Cyberpunk, and doesn't seem like a forced addition in the slightest. I honestly look forward to seeing him more in my own playthrough, while I look at pictures of him on my phone from E3. There is a lot of hype surrounding Cyberpunk 2077, and it's very easy to get caught up in and overlook the game's faults. Objective journalism is becoming a thing of the past, and when you start adding celebrities to the mix, this only becomes more true. Everyone wants to make friends with rising stars and Keanu Reeves, and so it becomes difficult to criticize games. I've always tried to maintain some semblance of objectivity, though difficult. Witness my recent shredding of the Outer Worlds, which I'm sure didn't win me any brownie points with Obsidian. So when I say this game may be the best in the past 10 years, it doesn't come lightly. Time will tell if I'm right or not, but all indications are that it will be even better than what we've seen, and that is something that is frankly hard to fathom. If you have not got caught up in the hype yet, or you're holding out until you see more gameplay, I fully understand. However, just let me say, you will be eventually. Fucking help us in April of next year, because it will be absolute mayhem. Stay tuned for more Cyberpunk 2077 content as we explore how a board game becomes a video game, and be sure to check out the Cyberpunk 2077 wiki for all information that is currently known on the game.